What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. Omarion, and of the top 12 running backs in points per game last year, 4 of them finished as RB1s for the first time in their career. And if we look at the 12 to 24 range of RB2s, 4 of those running backs did so for the first time in their careers. These are the breakouts. In fantasy football, we are relentlessly in pursuit of the breakout running backs because a lot of times they are league winners, right? On this list, guys like Chuba Hubbard, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving were all great picks that really propelled your team forward in fantasy. So today, we're going to talk through the 8 running backs you need to draft before they break out in 2025. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into what a breakout even is, because I think that that's a little bit of a touchy subject of like what counts as a breakout. For me, it is the next running back to break into the top 12 or break into the top 24 for the first time in their careers. Here, this is a chart from Ryan Heath in his Age Curves article from 2024, showing that breakout running backs come from rookies, second-year players, and third-year players at the running back position. So we are going to hone in today on running backs in their first 3 years with the upside to finish as RB1s or RB2s for the first time in their careers. And first up, we're going to talk about Bucky Irving. Now, the first few are cheating a little bit, right? Bucky Irving was an RB2 last year. Of course, down the stretch after week 11 in terms of his bye week, he was the RB6 with 18.3 points per game. So he already had a stretch as the RB6. He was an RB1 in points per game on the back half of the season, but I think this is going to be the year he does it for an entire sample size. Now you're going to see here, this is the consensus ranking. You guys loved the steals by round video where I talked through Yahoo, ESPN Sleeper. So moving forward, that's the ADP we're going to use, the default rankings aggregate across all of those sites. And Bucky Irving is going off the board at the 209 as the RB10, and I am drafting a lot of him. Last year, he was really good. 5th in yards per carry, 7th in explosive run rate, 3rd in missed tackles forced per attempt, 4th in yards after contact per attempt. He was also top 10 in receptions at running back despite sharing a backfield with Rachaad White, which is really impressive. He is very simply a good player on a good team, right? This is a Tampa Bay offense that once Tristan Wirfs is healthy about a third of the way into the season, this is a top 3 offensive line by Establish the Run. They're implied to be a top 10 scoring offense by Las Vegas. That is beautiful. He was also one of 8 running backs last year with 1.6 plus yards per out run, which signals to us that maybe there's a little bit more receiving upside for him to be had this year. We look at this Dwayne McFarland tweet. Bucky had 19.7 points per game in 8 games where he reached 45% of the snaps. Round 4 pick, wrestle job away after the bye. Final 4 games, 63%, 72% of the attempts, 100% of the inside the 5 work, and then higher targets per route than Rachaad White. He wouldn't rule down more passing down work in 2025. You have a article here from Dan Graziano saying, viewed by people in the building as special enough to warrant a high-volume RB1 role. That includes pass-catching work. And then at the bottom, add in the ability to catch too. He's well-rounded. And that's really where Bucky Irving takes it to the next level, is he goes from 47 receptions to like 70 plus. And that's kind of the Devon Achane roadmap, right? Where Devon Achane, super efficient running back as a rookie. Now, of course, his efficiency cratered because the offense cratered, but we're expecting here with Tampa this to be a good offense. So the efficiency should stay there. But we then saw Devon Achane in like a bell cow workload type of role, despite being like a 188-pound running back. And we could 100% see that for Bucky Irving here, because a lot of times efficiency earns more volume in the NFL, especially at running back. So if we could see Bucky Irving become almost a bell cow, which is crazy at his size, but bell cow in the sense of more total touches, leaning towards receptions, it wouldn't be all that crazy, especially because right now Rachaad White is kind of opening the door for Bucky Irving to get a lot more of that receiving down work. Right now, he has a groin injury, stands to reason he may miss some time, and Bucks may have to sign another running back for camp. There's not really a firm timetable on this groin injury with Rachaad White, and that could, like I said, open the door for Bucky Irving on passing downs. And we even saw towards the end of the year, Bucky Irving almost be the bell cow that I'm talking about here, where in their only playoff game last year, where I think they lost to Washington, he had 17 carries and he had 2 receptions. He had 19 of 22 total running back touches. And if we saw that kind of usage carry into 2025, then all of a sudden at the 2-3 turn, you're getting somebody that could be a top 6 pick in 2026. Now, our second breakout running back here is, again, we're going to get deeper. Just trust, we're going to get deeper. We have Chase Brown. He's going off the board at the 212 by consensus as the RB11. and he would be a year 3 breakout candidate here. People kind of forget that he didn't really do much as a rookie, and then last year was his small breakout into, being the RB13 in points per game, and I think this is going to be his true breakout as a top 12 running back in points per game. Now, similar to Bucky, he had an amazing late season stretch where he had 20.6 points per game from week 9 on. He was the RB4 over that stretch, and now his only competition is Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks, a guy that they drafted on day 3. He's okay, but he's a day 3 running back without much tied to him. Now, there's no Zach Moss. He's still in line for a ton of volume. Samaje Perine might be annoying on passing downs, but there's not going to be any competition for the early down work. And then also Ryan Heath has a great tweet here showing that Chase Brown weeks 9 through 18 on first and second down only. So even if you take him off the field on third down, he still is out there with 4 targets per game, which would have been 6th among all running backs last year. Again, that's even not including him on third down. So if he's still going to challenge for 4+ targets per game, even if Samaje Perine might be a little bit annoying, I think he's still going to get the volume that we're looking for, because I think that he can afford to lose some of that passing work. He was an absolute bell cow last year, and if they scale some of those touches back, he still should be a fine 18+ point per game guy. And I do want to point out as well that some people might be like, oh, well, he was only good when Zach Moss got hurt. And that sucks because he had a great season. As you guys know, I was all over Chase Brown last year as well. It was a dark first 5 weeks, but then from week 6 through 8, when Zach Moss was still healthy, you can see here the snap count. He goes from like a 40% snap share to a 60% to a 57%, still around that 50% range. He was pretty much at that point starting to clear ahead of Zach Moss, and probably still would have been somebody you could start and be a league winner down the stretch. But then, of course, Zach Moss out for the season, and then from that red line on, Chase Brown just goes absolutely nuts. But I think he would have finished strong regardless. He's the clear running back 1 on this Bengals team, who is projected for the top 10 most points scored by Vegas. There should be plenty of volume. He's going to catch passes. There's going to be TD potential in this offense as well, where he's actually kind of due for more touchdowns. Last year, he scored 11 on 13.4 expected touchdowns, so he actually kind of got unlucky when it came to scoring touchdowns last year. That should bounce back. Really, the main drawback with Chase Brown, and I think it's priced in at the 212, is one that he's a day 3 back. Him and Bucky Irving have that same issue where we've seen guys in the past, whether that's Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Howard or James Robinson, and guys we've gotten over our skis on in terms of day 3 picks. That's now priced in. And then also this offensive line is brutal. Ranked 30th by established the run, which might kind of kill him when it comes to efficiency. But again, with Chase Brown, you're getting youth, you're getting pass catching, you're getting volume and touchdown upside. So I think that kind of outweighs the downside of this offensive line. Our third breakout running back candidate is going to be Omarion Hampton. He's going to 401 as the RB14 in your home league. He's a guy I'm drafting in the middle of the 3rd round right now. And the first thing I want to talk about at the top, because I have gotten this question, is Ron, no Rashawn Slater. If you're going to downgrade somebody like Justin Herbert, why not downgrade Omarion Hampton? And what I'll say is that I have downgraded Omarion Hampton. If Rashawn Slater was healthy, I'd probably have Omarion Hampton as like my 25th ranked player. Instead, now he's like my 30th or 31st. The offensive line is a huge issue, right? You lose Rashawn Slater. They get bumped from a top 10 unit down to the 25th unit on Establish the Run. But even with the offensive line concerns, the updated Vegas projections, which are also out on Establish the Run, still have the Chargers projected to be the 13th highest scoring offense. That should be a solid, strong offense that's going to score points, that has Justin Herbert at quarterback, has plenty of weapons on the outside. It might hurt Hampton in terms of his efficiency, but he should still have a good role in a good offense. And this is somebody who is a first-round pick. He had 1,500 plus rushing yards, 15 plus touchdowns, and averaged 30 plus receptions in each of his final 2 years. That is 2 straight years of, again, 1,500 plus rushing yards and 15 plus touchdowns. He has 4.4 speed at 220 pounds. He was drafted in the 1st round. And if you look at first-round running backs in the NFL draft since 2012, it's a pretty decent hit rate. Again, we are looking for players that can finish as an RB1 for the first time in their careers. Of course, Omarion Hampton is a rookie, but we saw earlier that rookies have the highest hit rate when it comes to breakouts. So I want to bet on Omarion Hampton to finish as a top 12 running back here. And again, a 50% hit rate on round 1 running backs isn't bad at all. Where 16 plus points per game is about what you need to finish as an RB1. And we've seen in the past guys like, Saquon, Zeke, even later drafted guys like Doug Martin and Najee Harris do it, and Leonard Fournette. Even Trent Richardson did it as a rookie, and he wasn't even that good. So I do like that hit rate of about 50%. I think Omarion Hampton's in a good spot to succeed. Now, of course, there's a lot of noise in this data too. Like, you have to remember, like, Christian McCaffrey was splitting reps with Jonathan Stewart, and some of these were murky backfields. To me, Omarion Hampton is the very clear-cut number one, and we still have, I don't even really know what to say about what's going on with Najee Harris, eye injury. They're saying, Jim Harbaugh is saying there's a chance he could miss week one. He's hilarious too. He's like, I'm talking about what I know, and can he open his eye? Yeah, I've looked into his eye. He's saying he's looked into Omarion Hampton's eye, but we still haven't seen him practice. We still haven't seen him on the field. And at this point, when you're not on the field, you're not learning the playbook, you're not earning the trust of Justin Herbert, Omarion Hampton is covering a lot of ground in this running back competition. And then also, just to kind of get a feel, because I know not all of you guys follow us when we're talking about Dynasty, is that Hampton as a prospect, he just looks like that old school bell cow, where 221 pounds, 4'4", 640, 38-inch vertical. He looks like an Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon style, like old school bell cow volume workhorse back. And to me, that's very exciting. Now, we're going to make one exception for this video, and it's Kenneth Walker. All right, when we look at the running back breakouts, year 4 isn't that great for breakouts, right? But with Kenneth Walker, he technically did finish as an RB12 in points per game last year, and you're going to probably watch the intro and be like, how come you said Achane finishes a top 12 running back for the first time? I used a 13-game minimum because Kenneth Walker last year was the RB12 in points per game with just 11 games played. So if you drafted him, you didn't really get the benefit of like an RB1 where you drafted him. So I think that's a little bit, I think 13 minimum is about a solid standard, because if you miss 4 games, it's still a lot, but it's enough that it's still just fine. But 11 games makes it really rough to be like, yeah, this guy was a good pick in fantasy football. But what I will say is that year 4 is actually a really strong year for running backs. When we did our legendary running back upside research, we found that the most common year for 22-plus point per game seasons at running back was actually in year 4. Now, I'm not predicting Kenneth Walker to hit 22-plus points per game, but it is worth noting that like year 4 is the year. If your running back is going to have a monster year, year 4 is the year to do it, or year 2, which we just talked about Bucky Irving. But Kenneth Walker, I really do think, could challenge for a monster season last year. When we look at what he did over the first 7 weeks, I think that we all forget this. When we were doing rest of season rankings after the first 7 weeks, Kenneth Walker was in discussions as the RB1 rest of season. He was at 22.3 points per game through week 7. He had more points per game than Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara. He was really, really good. And I think we all forget it. And then even if you just want to go through week 13, he gets hurt in week 13 and on. From weeks 1 through 12, he was the RB7 in points per game. And now you're drafting him as the RB16. So for me, in the middle of the 4th round, he's a smash. I have him as a late 3rd in my own personal rankings right now, which I will say, I have all of these guys highlighted as targets in my rankings. If you want access to my top 200 cheat sheet, you can find that over on Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I have my targets, my fades, my tiers, my ideal draft round for every single player, and it's what I use in all of my drafts this summer. And then, of course, during the season, you get my waiver wire article, weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, all of that good stuff and more. Patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find that in the description and the comment section down below. But with Kenneth Walker, he's just a freak. Like, he, to me, is a very talented runner. Last year, he broke this chart in terms of yards after contact per carry and tackles avoided per carry. In terms of missed tackles forced per touch, he was in a league of his own. Now, he did have a down year last year with 3.8 yards per carry. That's because the offensive line was brutal. Kenneth Walker was banged up. But I think that we're going to see a shift in this offense this season. We have a lot of coach speak to get into. This is from Coach Speak Index on Twitter. He's a great follow. But really, what it comes down to is McDonald, the Seahawks head coach, fired Ryan Grubb, 1-year offensive coordinator last year. And really what it came down to is that he wants to establish the run. Grubb wanted more of a modern passing offense. So what does McDonald do? He fires Grubb. We have quotes back to when McDonald first got hired of saying we're going to be a physical unit, we're going to run the football, and we want to have answers for the quarterback. Pretty much saying we want to run the damn ball. And that's not what they did last year. So then he goes out and he hires Clint Kubiak from the Saints to do that. Now, Clint Kubiak's going to come in here, and he's going to establish a zone running scheme, which is really good for Kenneth Walker. This is from Jacob Gibbs here, saying the real winner, if he can stay healthy, would appear to be Kenneth Walker. Alvin Kamara was ripping off explosives in this run design early in the season. His explosive rush rate under Kubiak was his highest since 2020. For his career, Walker has averaged 4.4 yards per zone rush compared to 3.8 on non-zone. He's been at his best on outside zone runs, averaging 4.7 yards. In 2024, Kubiak's Saints ranked third with a 46% outside zone run rate. So that really matches up with Walker's strengths. Now, a lot of people out there love Zach Charbonnet. They think Charbonnet can maybe be the RB1 here. To me, I think that he's more of a handcuff. Charbonnet doesn't fit as well, where for his career, Charbonnet has just a 3.7 yard average on outside zone runs. On non-zone runs, Charbonnet has averaged 4.4 yards. His collegiate data tells a similar story. Charbonnet is a better man gap runner. He likely will not see many of those opportunities in Kubiak's system. And then we talk about Clint Kubiak. He has been a play caller for 2 seasons in the NFL. Ryan Heath here points out that Clint Kubiak's RB1 in terms of expected fantasy points per team play. So just what is the percentage of your team's output going into your RB1? It's Christian McCaffrey, it's Clint Kubiak's RB1, then it's Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs. Clint Kubiak's RB1 he uses as a true bell cow, not just a bell cow, but a ton in the receiving game as well, which to me is the exciting part for Kenneth Walker, where we already have this quote saying I'm really excited about Kenneth Walker in this zone scheme, but I've seen Ken in all schemes play really good football. I've seen the guy catch the ball well out of the backfield, which I think is really important for our backs that we utilize them. Obviously, whatever we can do to get them touches, throwing him routes out of the backfield, throwing him screens. So I think we're going to see Kenneth Walker really benefit from this new scheme. I think this new scheme is going to mask a lot of the issues with this offensive line. I think Kenneth Walker is going to catch more passes. And if all of this happens, he truly has 20-plus point per game upside as a running back that you could honestly kind of sell me into drafting as early as like the middle of the third, early third round in fantasy. And instead you can get him in the middle of the fourth. Now, there is massive downside. He's somebody that never stays healthy. You are hitching your wagon to Sam Darnold in a shaky offensive line. But I think in the fourth round, he's the perfect boom-bust player where if he does break out, I think that he truly does have 20-plus point per game upside as like a massive, massive league winner this season. And that's where I want to be shooting for upside is in these middle rounds. Now, after that, let's get to Treveyon Henderson. Now, of course, everyone and their brother is talking about Treveyon Henderson after the preseason game. The cat's out of the bag, the punt return touchdown. Everyone's coming into my chat and saying, Ron, where are you going to rank Treveyon Henderson now? Well, we've been ahead of the field with Treveyon Henderson the entire time. I've had him now as like my 47th ranked player. I've moved him up to like 44th. And that's still way ahead of consensus, which has him as the 607 as the RB24. Even when these home league sites like ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo catch up, I still don't think it's going to be enough. I still don't think it's going to be fourth round prices. I think it'll be more like early fifth, and we'll still be drafting in that mid to late fourth area when it comes to Henderson. Now, what really mattered in the preseason wasn't the punt return touchdown. It was the fact that he had 7 snaps to Ramondre Stevenson's 8 snaps. And not just that, but he ran 6 routes on 8 pass plays for a 75% route participation. He had 3 targets out of 5 total with the first team. So he has already got the passing down role on lock, which is huge, right? Because this is a team that has had Josh McDaniels feed a guy like James White for 87 catches, 751 yards, 7 touchdowns in the receiving game as an RB1 in fantasy football. We've seen him have guys like Shane Vereen and Danny Woodhead. But on top of that, people have used that as a downside of like, well, Shane Vereen's never been like an RB1 and this and that. And it's like Treveyon Henderson has the receiving upside of those guys, but is also a much better runner between the tackles. So if we have already established that he's going to be a weapon in the receiving game, he is going to be out there on passing downs, then all of a sudden, the bet is that he just chips away at Ramondre Stevenson for the larger share of the rushing role down the stretch of the season. And if you're drafting Treveyon Henderson, it's because you think he's a good player. And if he's a good player, he will take that work away from Ramondre over the entire year. He's super explosive. He is one of these guys that fits the Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, James Cook archetype of explosive pass catcher. This is somebody who had 7.1 yards per carry last year at Ohio State. He also was drafted in a really, what I would call like a fertile range for running backs, where when you go outside of the first round, but still inside the top 50 picks, you're looking at guys like DeAndre Swift, Nick Chubb, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Matt Forte, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Le'Veon Bell since 2007. It's a really good range to be drafting running backs. And to me, he is a really strong prospect where he has 4.4 speed, again, out of Ohio State. And he is this explosive pass catcher. He had a 10% plus breakaway run rate for his career in college. That was top 3 in this class. And then also we have a team on the Patriots where I want to bet on Drake May to take this next step forward carry this Patriots offense and actually being a good offense. You also have a lot of upside with the offensive line where they draft Will Campbell out of LSU this year. And if the offensive line clicks, if Drake May clicks, and all of a sudden Treveyon Henderson is their best receiving weapon and their most explosive weapon outside of like Stephon Diggs, then all of a sudden he has true RB1 league winner upside. I think that we could see him be kind of like the Jahmyr Gibbs to Ramondre Stevenson's David Montgomery and be a really strong pick in fantasy. Another one who kind of fits the same mold of a guy that's going to rise from preseason, but I don't think it's going to be enough, is RJ Harvey. He's going at the 603 as the RB23 right now. Now, he got some preseason buzz. He got the start over J.K. Dobbins. We still don't know if J.K. Dobbins forgot his helmet on the sideline. Who knows what's going on there? But your home league still hasn't adjusted enough, right? He's going to 603. He's my 47th ranked player in my rankings. I would be shocked if your home league, default rankings get to 48th, 49th, 50th. We'll see. We'll kind of see when these adjust or whatever. I will say as well, people have asked me if I've updated the website for that steals and busts video where we talk about the best values and the worst values. Underneath the comments in both of those videos now has the website live and ready to go. So if you want to just check back to that video and use it for the updated, whatever high stakes ADPs updated, whatever default rankings are updated, that'll be good to go for the rest of the summer. So I did want to say that real quick here. Now back to RJ Harvey. I do want to point it out that there is some Clyde Edwards-Helaire type downside here, right? Where he's not the best running back prospect in the world, and you're drafting him based on his role with Sean Payton, right? And when I say Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was a first-round running back prospect, but one of the weaker ones we've ever seen. But he was attached to Andy Reid, and you start thinking through Kareem Hunt, you start thinking through Brian Westbrook, and what can Clyde Edwards-Helaire be? And you do the same thing with Sean Payton, right? Reggie Bush, and you talk about Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram and all of these guys. What I will say is that I remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a late first, early second his rookie year in terms of redraft fantasy football, even in home leagues. This year, RJ Harvey in the 6th round, I think, is a fine bet. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a 6th round pick as a rookie, it wouldn't have hurt nearly as bad when he busted. But there's still the same upside here because when we talk about Sean Payton, there is real reason to be excited here. When you look at Sean Payton coach teams in the PPR fantasy points per game by team running backs, so just the total PPR points going to the running back position, he has been top 6 in 10 of 12 seasons from 2011 to 2023. I don't have that updated for 2024, but we know historically he wants to use running backs not only in total, but in the passing game. When we look here from Adam Levitan from 2013 to 2024 in terms of running back target share, so just target share to the running back position, he is ranked 1st, 4th, 6th, 1st, 2nd. He's never ranked out to the top 6 in targets to the running back. So this is a situation where Sean Payton's going to want to use his running backs a lot. He's going to want to use them in the passing game, and that's the perfect skill set and role for RJ Harvey on a really good team, or a really good situation, where this is a 14th scoring offense by Vegas, and then the 4th best offensive line by Establish the Run. So this is a team that's going to score touchdowns. They're going to have a good offensive line. And to me, when we look at Bo Nix, who had the 3rd highest rate of targets behind the line of scrimmage, it all lines up for RJ Harvey to get a lot of work in the receiving game and be efficient between the tackles, where he is a really fun prospect. He gets drafted 2nd round, and he looks kind of like an explosive, efficient back in the same mold of an Aaron Jones, where he's 5'8", 205 pounds, but 4.4 speed, 38-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump. And this is somebody where among the 6 running backs drafted on day 1 and 2, so you're talking Genty, Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, and RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey ranks 1st in explosive run rate, 2nd in elusiveness rating, 2nd in receiving fantasy points per snap among that entire list. So he is elusive, explosive, athletic, catches passes, and he gets draft capital tied to Sean Payton. For me, I'd be comfortable drafting him as high as the 4th round. Now, after that, taking a big jump down to Jaydon Blue. Going off the board at the 1203 as the RB47 in your home league. And this is where we get, from the guys who are hoping for RB1 point per game finishes to your Bucky Irving style top 24 point per game finish, where what we're hoping for is that these are guys in murky backfields that emerge by week 5, 6, 7, 8, and they become RB1s in points per game down the stretch, but then they finish as a top 24 back. And people love to get really squeamish about these committees, right? Ambiguous backfield, right? Jaydon Blue is in a backfield with Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams, and it's really messy. But the thing is, messy running back rooms are where you find values. Last year, Bucky Irving was in a running back room with Rashad White and Sean Tucker. If you remember Alvin Kamara's rookie year, he was in a running back room with Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram. if you want true league-winning upside, you have to kind of take a swing on a messy backfield, and I want to do it with these rookies because my biggest stand this year is I want to be all in on this rookie running back class. To me, this is the best running back class since 2017 when you saw Kamara, James Conner, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook. Like, it's one of the Aaron Jones, Chris Carson. It's one of the, like, most nuts draft classes of all time. This draft class has the potential to be that. When we look at the NFL Next Gen Stats prospect model, there are 5 2025 running backs ranked ahead of the 2024 RB1. And of the top 11 running backs in their draft score metric, 8 of the top 11 are from the 2025 class. I want to be all in on this class. So I want to be drafting, even guys that I'm not mentioning in this video, I want to be drafting Cam Scatterbo, and I want to be drafting, we talked about Omarion Hampton and Treveyon Henderson, and I want to be drafting Dylan Sampson and RJ Harvey and Bhayshul Tuten. And on top of that, Jaydon Blue, who's not even shown here, but I think he's in a really good spot and one of the more underrated running backs in this class, where he's in a committee with, again, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, 2 running backs who had under 4 yards per carry last year and are not good at this point in their career. We saw last year that while Rico Dowdle didn't get the RB1 role right away, he did eventually finish as a top 24 running back in points per game, getting a stranglehold on the role down the stretch. And that's what you're hoping for with a guy like Jaydon Blue, is that eventually he secures a role that you can feel good about starting in your lineup. Now, he is a 5th round pick, so a bit of a dart throw here in terms of the NFL draft, but he has a really unique profile. He is one of these guys where if he could be the next Nyheim Hines, and I know it's like, maybe like, Nyheim Hines, like, why would I want that? But when you think through, like, Nyheim Hines and J.D. McKissick and like Ty Montgomery and Chris Thompson and guys like that, and James White, who we talked about earlier, and some of those Patriots receiving backs, you can sometimes PPR scam your way into a startable running back season. And I think we could see that for Jaydon Blue. He's 5'9", 196 pounds, 4.38 speed. So he's really, really fast, really explosive. And last year, he had 42 catches, 368 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns for Texas, which is a big deal in a receiving room with Matthew Golden, with Isaiah Bond, who would have been a high NFL draft pick if he didn't have some off-the-field issues. You also have a guy in Ryan Wingo, who's a freshman stud that you'll learn about in like 2027. That's a really good, that's a good Texas team that he was out there catching 40 balls for in college. So he's a huge receiving weapon. I will say his rushing numbers weren't great. He had like 700 rushing yards, but again, we're talking about one of these receiving style backs. And when we look at Jaydon Blue's receiving fantasy points per snap, which is just your receiving fantasy points divided by your snaps in college, it's some of the best receiving backs of all time, right? Or just in terms of, not all time, but since 2016, right? It's Kenyon Drake, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Gibson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it's Brashard Smith, who's a fun flyer, and then it's Jaydon Blue tied with him as just one of the best receiving upside profiles we've seen in the NFL draft. And Dallas is a really good spot where they have the 15th best offensive line, so that's solid. And then you have, with that Dak Prescott healthy since 2019, Dallas has never been slower than 4th in neutral pace. So this should be an up-tempo team with a decent offensive line, a weak running back room. There should be lots of shootout potential as well with of course, the Dallas Cowboys dome and this shaky defense. Who knows what's going on with Micah Parsons? So Jaydon Blue has, to me, really sky-high league winner potential if he can find a receiving role and kind of a full-time role in this backfield down the stretch of the season. And then our last running back for today, our 8th breakout running back candidate, is Bhayshul Tuten. And I mentioned Bhayshul Tuten anytime I can. You guys are sick of it by now, so I'll keep it short and sweet. Again, I want pieces of messy backfields and offenses that I like. I love this offense with Liam Cohen. I love this offense with Trevor Lawrence. I think it's going to be one of the biggest revelations in fantasy football this year. And while Bhayshul Tuten was pretty clearly the RB3 on the depth chart in preseason, he looked very good in the 4th quarter when he was playing, and there's still wiggle room, right, where I kind of like compare it to when you're playing like my career on whether that's college football or whatever. It's preseason week 1. He's still working his way up the depth chart. He's trying to flash in preseason. He's trying to flash in camp to get up the depth chart, move things up. And that's kind of the bet with Tuten, is that he shines in preseason, in camp, and then in week 1, he's maybe at like a 20% snap share, but on his touches, he looks good. And then all of a sudden, by week 6, he's somebody you can put in your lineup because he's earned the goodwill of the coaches. Well, right now, this running back room is very weird. ETN gets all the first team work in preseason week 1. Tuten balls out in that preseason game. Tuten then gets practice with the ones. ETN cramps and leaves practice today. You also had a weird Tank Bigsby tweet where he had like a Pinocchio nose, which signals to me like maybe he was guaranteed a certain role, and now that role is kind of being taken away from him. Maybe ETN gets traded. I don't want to speculate too much, but it's just, again, all signs point to this being a weird, ambiguous backfield, and instead of being like, oh, I don't want to touch anybody, we should want to target the cheapest option, really, who is Bhayshul Tuten. And on top of that, he had one of the best showings today. This is I believe this is from John Shipley. He's one of like the premier beat reporters for the Jacksonville Jaguars for a very long time. And he made the article today on kind of like the camp notes. As for rookie Bhayshul Tuten, who had a strong showing in the preseason opener, the amount of team reps continued to increase, which is first team reps. Tuten had the best run of the day with an explosive carry up the middle that resulted in him speeding past the second and third levels of the defense for an explosive touchdown. So today, he had like a 50-plus yard touchdown with the ones. He's continuing to impress, working his way up the depth chart. And this is just a profile I want to bet on. James Gladstone, the new Jaguars GM, he actually pitched the owner that if he came in and was a GM, he wants Bhayshul Tuten. It's his guy. This is a new regime coming in here. And Bhayshul Tuten's one of these guys, similar to an RJ Harvey, where smaller back, right, 5'9", 206 pounds, but 4.3 speed, 40.5-inch vertical. Looks like a Reggie Bush clone here. And of the first 8 running backs drafted in 2025, he ranks 3rd in missed tackles forced per touch, 2nd in yards after contact per attempt, 2nd in chunk rate, 3rd in breakaway run rate, 3rd in elusiveness rating, 1st in receiving fantasy points per snap, and 1st in speed score. He is a really strong prospect for a day 3 guy. Again, if we look at the draft score by NFL Next Gen Stats, he is the 11th best running back prospect over the last 2 classes, which to me is pretty impressive for a day 3 pick. But that is going to do it for us today. Those are 8 running backs you need to draft before they break out in 2025. As always, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and as always, if you are drafting this weekend, make sure you check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I have my top 200 rankings there. I have these breakout running backs pushed up to make sure that you are drafting them when they are at value. And then, of course, wide receivers pushed up in that round 7 to 10 range so you can fill your flex with studs. You have my targets, my fades, my target rounds, and it's the cheat sheet I go into my high stakes draft with every single night when I do them for you guys. And I will say, make sure you check out the streams. I stream every single night. I try to make sure that I mention it in these videos. Every night from now through week 1 kickoff, I will be live on the channel drafting either on underdog or drafting in high stakes, and it's always just a fun time, so come check that out. But if you're not interested in any of that, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, I surround my body like I'm frozen.